My name is Trish Ware, and I am obsessed with all things pregnancy and birth and helping you to navigate both the practical and the magical seasons of this journey called motherhood. I'm an all-day coffee-sipping mama of 7. I've had the amazing privilege of delivering many babies in my 15-plus year career as a labor and delivery nurse and as a mama of 7. I'm here to help you take the guesswork out of childbirth so you can make the choices that are right for you and your baby. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not replace your medical advice. Check out our full disclaimer at the bottom of the show notes. Good morning, everyone. I am excited today, and it's so funny. Every time I say that, I realize that's what I say every week. But I'm really particular about the guests we have onto the birth experience because I want you guys to get like really awesome information. Today's guest is Megan Heaton from the VBAC Link. And you guys know I am sort of obsessed with VBACs. So welcome, Megan.
Well, thank you. And it's kind of funny that you say that because when I get on the podcast and I'm recording, I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. And I'm like, always saying I'm so excited. Everyone's like, yeah, okay, sure. You're always, but truly, we are so excited, right? When we're talking to people about these topics that we love.
Well, and that's funny. I don't record all the time. So for me, it might have been a month since I said I'm so excited.
Right, right.
But for you guys, you hear it every week. So today, Megan and I are going to talk about two things. Actually, it's kind of combined because it's ridiculous roadblocks and ridiculous things that providers will
Mhm.
tell moms who are going for their VBAC. So I'm going to let you kick it off.
Yeah, I mean, talking about ridiculous things, that's literally something that we hear every day where I'm like, "What?" And I just kinda, like, fist palm my face, and I'm like, What? Why would they say that?" Or,
No, I can't
"Where."
wait to tell you some of the ones I've heard too.
Yes, or, like, "Where did that even come from?" You know? And so I was telling you before, we kind of did a post the other day about this, like, what are some of the ridiculous things that you've been told about VBAC or roadblocks that have been told, like, you can't the reason why you can't VBAC? And I think this could be a roadblock, and it could be something that maybe is true, but number 1, it's your pelvis didn't get a baby out of it the first time, it cannot get a baby out of it, it's, like, impossible, and I personally was told that. I was told by multiple doctors I would never get a baby out of my pelvis, but then I pushed him out in, like, 3 pushes with no tearing.
Yeah, and can I, from the labor nurse side, say my thoughts on that one?
Yes, yes.
I love that they say that because if we could go back and be a fly on the wall, my guess is they were the problem the first time too, and now they're trying to be the problem the second time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I have seen that where we look back at what happened. Like why was our pelvis too small? Right? Why did we have and it's like, well, we broke waters really early and then we just sat on our back and we had a posterior baby or an asynclitic baby and then we didn't do anything about it. And it's like, well, okay. And sometimes posterior I'm sure you've seen it like posterior babies can be very difficult to get out of a pelvis.
Yeah, no, I number 5 was straight
Yeah.
OP, and thank God she was number 5 because I would have went back to the OR.
Yeah, it can be very, very difficult. It's one of the biggest reasons why is, fetal position and posterior is, one of those. But at the same time, what were all the things leading up that caused that baby to go in that position? Or did we rush a baby's natural rotation process coming down and out by
Yes,
breaking the water or by
or by being
uh,
induced in
I was gonna
general.
say by being
Yeah.
induced
Mhm.
way too early or even just, yeah, stressing the mom and the baby out or sticking them in one spot and not rotating. There's just so much where it's like, well, was the pelvis small or did we let that patient down by not trusting the process and working with nature's course?
Yeah. And I know for a fact that a huge problem is with the positioning side, with them not moving you enough. It's out of convenience. So, one of the things I say over and over again in both Calm Labor, Confident Birth, and the VBAC Lab is nothing out of convenience or curiosity. And one of the things that drove me insane, now I'm a very hands on labor nurse, and like I'm the one that's in the room all day, and all the nurses are like, what the hell? Why are you in there all day? But I like to be bedside. So when I say this, I'm saying this with lots of love, but also aggravation. A lot of labor nurses do not want to have to go in and out of the room to adjust the monitor. So they will have mom be like, you really need to stay right here because we need to see what's going on with baby. Instead of like using their creativity or squatting on the floor and holding the monitor, or even showing a family member or showing her how to tilt the monitor. And it's so annoying to me because you're literally damning her birth in some ways.
Yeah. Well, and as a doula side of things, I've been at births where I'm like, okay, we've got this coupling pattern, we've got back labor, say we've got all these signs saying, hey, we probably have a baby in a less ideal position. Let's work with movement, and we'll move. And a nurse, which we love nurses, but a nurse will run in and say, you can't move her that way. You're getting her off the monitor. She needs to stay like this. And I'm like, okay, how long has this mom been on a monitor? She's been on it for hours. We've had great tracing. Let's get this mom in a different position to help speed her labor up, make it easier on baby to come down, But yeah,
Well, even if the baby hasn't looked great on the monitor, one of the best things we can do is get her into an upright gravity assisted position
yeah,
because the baby's going to get more oxygen instead of, oh, let's just roll her to her
yeah.
left side. Like, no, let's get her up and hold the
Mhm.
freaking monitor if you have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I love that so much
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, it happens, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's frustrating on your end, like, especially going in and working with being so close with your patients and then having something like that happen. But yeah, the pelvis thing, and there are situations where maybe someone fell off a horse and has pelvic issues or surgeries, or we know that there are situations where babies just aren't really coming out. But yeah, that is a big one.
But again, I know there are situations. Getting into an upright gravity assisted position can open your pelvis by 28 to 30%.
And
Yeah.
rotation of our like femur rotation in and out, like that changes our pelvis itself, right? That outlet, like if our outlet has a smaller diameter because of the way our legs are or our body is, and we're not using gravity, we're lessening our chance to get our babies out.
It's really, really frustrating. And one of the things that I tell my VBAC Lab students that I really recommend to, well, number one, the most powerful thing they can do is labor at home as long as possible. But after that, waiting to get their epidural, really honestly, if they can like go unmedicated, that can really help a lot. And so that leads into another really ridiculous thing that providers say about VBACs and epidurals.
I was gonna say that they have to get an epidural or they can't get an epidural because it's it is crazy how vastly different it is depending on the person. Like you can VBAC, you have to get an epidural though the second you get here. And it's like, okay, and then of course there's the opposite of like, and in my opinion, I think it's used sometimes as a fear tactic of like, sure, you can do it, but you're going to feel every second of it and you're going to have to go unmedicated.
Well, the other one is, and if you have a uterine rupture, an emergency, then we're going to have to put you under and all. And here's what I say to every single one of you guys. As a high risk labor and delivery nurse who's traveled all over the country at some of the best facilities in the US, I can tell you that you can get a spinal done very quick. So, on the flip side, if it truly is an emergency, you're not going to care. You will not care. You just want the baby out. You want to be okay. And so, personally, the chances of that situation happening is like way higher if you are not doing the things that you can to help your body along. So it's really frustrating.
It is frustrating. And I see so many things mentally roadblocks, right? Where we are being told that we had an emergent cesarean before. And so, because it was emergent before, it's probably not a good idea to VBAC this time or whatever it may be. but it's actually most of the time not emergent because there is time. It's like pressing, like, okay, we're not having these things that we want. We can get that spinal. We can go in, have a very peaceful, controlled cesarean. But we use the emergency word too much.
No, because we don't want to have an emergency. We should just do it now. And that is so freaking frustrating. And I mean, I've heard, I don't know if you have as a doula, but as a labor nurse, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard, we don't want a dead
Oh,
baby.
it's the fear.
You're
Duh.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. We don't. You're right. That's obvious. That's why we did this. But is that really the case, sir? Like, ma'am, are we really at a point where we're gonna have a dead baby? Like me laboring longer, me moving, me doing all these things, we're really at risk for a dead baby. Like I hope you guys listening understand that I absolutely am a labor and delivery nurse. I love what I like do and what I'm capable of when you need it. But this fear mongering and this coercion and this bullying needs to
It
freaking
does.
go.
It really does. The dead baby card and even the epidural, like, well, if you don't do this and we have to knock you out, then you're going to miss the birth of your baby. When the chances overall of actually like a crash cesarean, they're pretty low. Like,
It's
yeah.
so
Yeah,
slim.
and then
Yeah.
we don't want it to become an emergency, and that just that fear, and it's like, what does that even do to us internally? Does that help us get our baby out? No. Does that help our contractions continue? No.
No, because adrenaline and
Yes.
fear goes up and that suppresses
Exactly.
oxytocin.
So I remember with my second C-section, he came in and he was just letting me know it wasn't happening for me and all the things, and told my husband I was putting my baby's life at risk. So he used my husband against me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. This is
Yeah.
another one.
So, and then my husband's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, like, I know you want this birth, but hello." Yeah.
Megan, why would you
Yeah,
do that?
and
Is having a vaginal
that
delivery more
important.
important than a healthy baby?
Right. And so
Yeah.
that happened, and I remember, like, I was like, "Well, give me one more hour," and I walked around. I didn't really feel a contraction after that because my body was like, "Nope. I'm not safe. I'm not
Yeah.
comfortable. I can't do this right now."
Which is amazing. You guys listening right now, I really want to stop and talk about how freaking amazing our bodies are. And I tell my moms all the like I get lit up talking about this. This is one of my favorite topics is that our bodies are so designed amazingly and just like a mama bear who finds her den, she doesn't find a den with spotlights and people talking and yelling at her. She finds a quiet, dark den and she feels safe and she labors and she gives birth. The same if you've ever had a dog that gets pregnant, they don't announce it. They go off by themselves. They find a dark place, quiet, and they give birth. But if you interrupt a mama bear or you interrupt a dog and they feel threatened, they will legit stop their labor to find another place, either to fight whatever it is or find another place. And our bodies are designed. I mean, if a bear and a dog can do that, do we not think our bodies are capable of stopping labor? Because the most important things to us is safety for us and our baby. And so, for those of you guys listening, your body is created to do the exact same thing. But here's where our lizard brain comes in. When our lizard brain thinks we're at threat, it doesn't matter if it's a lion coming into a den or it's a doctor coming in like an asshole to say some stupid thing, or it could just be chaos in your labor room. It could be you and your partner not on the same page. It could be a lot of different things, but your body will respond the way it's built to respond, which is your adrenaline goes up. You go into a fight or flight mode, whether it's actually being attacked or you think you're being attacked, and your labor will slow down and stop because we as mothers do not want to bear our child into a dangerous zone.
Right. Absolutely. And that I see it happen time and time again where moms aren't feeling safe and we have a stall or someone came in and said something
And don't
and
you feel so like
just
frustrated?
words.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
and our hands are tied at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a client recently that really wanted to labor at home as long as possible. She was a VBAC. She got all educated, kind of like dove in head first, which I think is amazing and definitely necessary. And the provider started talking to her about the dangers of her laboring at home and made her, even though she was once feeling safe and confident in her brain, made her go back in her brain and
Questioned
doubt
herself.
herself. Yes, because what he said, and there's a way, and I love providers. This is not to like say providers are crappy, but there's some things that need to stop, and it's getting out of control. But he made her believe that if she labored at home, she and her baby would die. Right? And I have my old partner, Julie Frankham, was told that specifically by a hospital midwife. If you have your baby at home, you and your baby will die. So they say these big things, and then we're left and we're like, wait, 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 wait. But these guys are the medical professionals. These guys know what they're talking about. Maybe I should not be so stubborn with myself, even though that's what originally felt right to us, right? Like she wanted to labor at home. So then when labor started, she was very anxious and didn't feel safe in her own home.
Which is
In her own home.
absolutely insanity. Okay, so we have said a couple really ridiculous things that providers say, but I wanna skip back a little. This is why I give away my birth coach class. If your partner is not as educated as you are, if they don't understand what intervention is used and why it's used and when you can wait and what questions you can ask, or if they don't understand that providers will lie and providers will say bullshit, then when it hits and it comes to it, now you're not only fighting the staff, your own partner thinks you're being unwise. And that's where most women cave, because now they're like, well, what if? What if, God forbid, the worst happens and my partner's going to blame me for the rest of my life? Because here's the truth. The worst can happen. Bad things can happen, but doing it that way and making fear-based decisions is not the right way. And as a mom from the beginning of conception till your children are in, till you're elderly, you're always going to question yourself in certain ways, but making fear-based decisions is always wrong.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, I was in that exact position. My husband didn't educate himself. He didn't care to educate himself. I love him dearly, but he was like, I'm not doing that. Like, whatever. If you want to go take a childbirth education class,
I
you
hear
can.
so many partners say that.
Yeah, and then when it came down to it and he was sitting there telling him what I was doing, willing to do to our baby, it scared the living crap out of him. And so he did. He turned on me. And it wasn't like he turned on me because he wanted to attack me. He was like, babe, like, this is our baby. What are you
Yeah.
thinking?
Yeah.
And then I caved because I'm like, wait, he doesn't even trust me. He's not like it was a whole thing. And man, it sure made a big difference with our third, with my VBAC after 2 C-section baby, because he still wasn't as great as some dads
Yeah.
should be as far as
Yeah.
educating themselves, but he dove in a lot deeper. He attended the doula visits. He understood. I'd send him visits, right? And then when it came down to the birth, he was like, yeah, and he was so confident, and which
Yeah.
helped me
Yeah.
feel confident and labor smoothly, right? And so yeah, so powerful, so powerful. I really think the partners need to understand just the facts about
All of it.
things.
All of it. And here's the
Yeah.
other thing. During labor, her job is to labor, and you as the partner, your job is to step in, support, comfort, and advocate for her. She doesn't need to have to fight these battles during labor. That's where the partner and the doula comes in, and that's where she needs to just stay in her zone and you guys protect her zone. Okay, so this is something one of my students, so we have 3 times a month we hang out on Zoom for all pregnant moms, and then once a month for our VBAC moms. And I can't remember if it was a VBAC mom or a con labor mom, but one of my students said that her doctor told her that everyone has to be induced. No one goes into labor anymore.
What?
I know. You guys can't see Megan because I haven't gotten to using videos yet, but Megan literally dropped her entire head.
No one goes into labor on their own, so everyone has to be induced.
Mhm.
Wow.
They legit said that.
Wow.
I was like, "What is happening? Like, do these doctors not realize social media at the very least exists?"
Yeah, seriously. That my concern would be if anyone would believe that. So, as a listener, please don't believe
Yeah.
stuff
Well,
like
my
that.
bigger
Like,
concern is how did you not laugh
goodness.
out loud? Like, is this a
I
joke
know.
right now? Am I being punked?
Uh-huh.
But he
Yeah.
was dead
Why are you
serious.
I would like to ask that provider why they're an OB. Why are you in this area if you don't even believe that the woman's body can go into labor on
Well,
its own?
because they're surgeons. They are. They're
Yeah.
surgeons. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, the reason I didn't go, my plan originally was to become a midwife. And then I realized that to be the type of midwife I wanted to be, I would not be able to have the family life I want to have. And so I chose not to do that because I knew I was not going to be someone who's just inducing for my own schedule. So, all right, now it's your turn. What do you got for me?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna pull this up right here because I mean, there were so many. There's over 60 things that people said. Okay, let's look. There's a pelvis, of course. Another pelvis. Okay, so this is one that I think a lot of people run into, and it's actually in regards to uterine rupture with smaller windows. Like, you can't have a baby vaginally because you have a smaller window of like pregnancy, right? So they got pregnant, they wanted their babies a little closer, and they flat out tell them, you cannot ever. And they act like they're a ticking time bomb. So, yeah, and it makes it scary, like in that end of pregnancy, like, wait, am I safe to keep going? Is my uterus, did I really get pregnant too close? And there are studies showing stats on that, but like, they're not just ticking time bombs. So this follower said, "My OB said VBACs are risky. We know C-sections are very safe. Fast forward to my second C-section after a failed Tolac. She says, I had every single complication you can have from a C-section. Hemorrhage, cellulitis, skin infection from the incision, bowel obstruction, scar tissue, and all these things." And so she's like, so tell me that I was safe. So that is another thing, that VBACs are too risky, C-sections are safe.
Which is not true
When
if you're a candidate.
Yes, well, and in so many ways, there are a lot of risks for C-sections we're not
That's what
even
I'm
talking
saying.
about.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you're a candidate for a VBAC, the risk of a repeat C-section is way higher, and they don't say that. Like, it's so frustrating to me. This is a major abdominal surgery, and the risk is higher for both of you, you
Mhm.
and baby.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're not talking about that. And so we're getting roadblocked of like, well, oh, crap, is it really safe? Should I really do that? Should I put that baby at risk again? Should I risk my
Mhm.
own life?
But myself, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so that one is definitely not amazing. Okay, this one says, "It's not my personal story, but a local doctor told my friend that if she brought up having a C-section, the doctor would call CPS."
Wait, having a C-section
If
or
she
brought
even
up
brought it
having a
up,
vaginal delivery?
having a VBAC. If she even brought up having a
Okay.
VBAC, sorry, she would
She would call
call CPS on
CPS?
them. Mhm.
We need to call somebody on that doctor,
Yeah. So I have heard that
right?
a lot of times in areas of like parents or providers not liking what parents are doing, like out of hospital births, and then they transfer and they're like, we're going to
Yeah.
call CPS.
Yeah. And I want to tell you that there is, and I'll have Darby put it into the show notes. There is a number that you guys can call if you're being threatened in that way. I have it at the beginning of both my courses, Calm Labor and the VBAC Lab, because there have been, even there was I don't remember exactly the details. I'm winging it right now, but there was a lady in South Florida who was going vaginally, and they wanted to do a C-section, and she was refusing, and they called like attorneys, and they ended up doing the C-section.
What?
Yeah, but she ended up winning the case later.
Wow, it's because she was fully
So,
bullied and coerced into
yeah,
wow.
and they brought in like heads of the hospital, all this stuff. And it ended up her rights were trampled on, and she won the lawsuit, and I'm sure they lost a lot of money on that. But that's the thing, just because a doctor and a hospital is saying it's so, it does not always mean it's so. It doesn't. There's still people, and hospital policies and procedures are not the golden rule. That is
Yeah.
not what our
Yeah.
birth should be based on.
Yeah, we actually just wrote a blog about this too because policy, it's policy. It's
Yeah,
policy.
yeah.
So tell me from a labor and delivery nurse standpoint, when someone comes in and says it's policy, like what does a patient have options for to say? Because my opinion is just like, I
You
don't
just say,
care.
I
My
refuse
opinion,
it.
I
Yeah,
trump your policy.
yeah,
I trump it.
yeah,
But what would you give guidance wise to someone who their providers like or their staff members like, hey, like it's policy, I have to place
yeah.
this, blah, blah, blah. Or, you know,
Well, they can say, well, it's also the fact that I have rights as a patient and I have autonomy over my own body. And so I would love for you to chart that I refuse. Now, if it's hospital policy, like, okay, children can't come onto the postpartum floor, you're going to be hard pressed with something like that. But if it's policy about your own damn body, you trump that. You trump that, period. I had a student back when I first started the VBAC lab. She flew from, she was, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. Where was she at? She was in Germany, I believe. Anyway, she was somewhere that they didn't do VBACs. And the nearest, no, it was not Germany. It was like Guam or something weird like that. That's what it was. They didn't do VBACs. And if she did have her labor, they would have to fly her somewhere else if there was an emergent. And so, of course, she wasn't comfortable with that. It was baby number 3. So she found a doctor in the US where her family was. Her and her 2 other children flew to the US. They finished out her pregnancy with this doctor. And this doctor was like, yes, I'll do a VBAC 2C, no problem. She goes into labor. Her and her doula and her husband arrive at the hospital, and the hospital's like, we don't do VBAC 2Cs here. And she was like, what? Now, here's what she did. She refused the C-section. So they basically were like, hands off. Okay, well, we can't do
free birthing in
anything
a
to help
hospital.
you. Yeah, that we can't do anything to help you. The doctor was very apologetic, but sorry, he should have known this. And they wouldn't help her. Like her labor was going very slow, which I always say VBACs are slow, but her labor is going really, really slow. They won't do anything to help her. And so the doula went out and bought like a really nice pump because of course she doesn't live in the US, so she doesn't have all her stuff. They did nipple stimulation and she ended up delivering that baby vaginally. And nurses were cheering her on because they were not okay with everything else. And like people were coming in on their day off to see her because she really fought the policy.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, policy is not law.
No, it's not. It's their choice. They chose those
It,
policies. I do not
it was
choose them.
yeah, it was written in a big staff meeting that they all felt like
Mhm.
these are good policies to put in place.
To protect
Them.
the
Yes.
hospital.
Them.
Not because they're really worried about you. They're worried about the bottom line.
Yeah. So I
Period.
think that's just something to know. Like you can always say, no,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
cool with that. Yeah.
Right. And if it's your body, then that it's your body. Now, on the flip side, as a labor and delivery nurse who has seen some really stupid things that people have refused when it was very necessary, I will also say, and I say this, I have some mantras inside my community, nothing out of convenience or curiosity, but also we don't refuse just because we can. You have to be educated. You have to understand. You have to learn how to read the room. And I tell my students all this all the time. If your doctor comes in, they grab their stool and they roll up next to the bed and they start telling you you need a C-section, chances are you have time to wait. You can make some choices here. If the entire team runs into the room and they're throwing on their OR gear, one person's doing this, one person's doing that. This is a little different of a situation. There might actually be an emergent situation happening. So you're reading the room. Now, do you have a right to ask what's going on and find out? Yes. And you can ask, do I have time to think about this? And if they're like, no, you do not, then you probably shouldn't refuse. Plain and simple, because when shit really hits the fan, you can read the room and you know it. If your doctor has time to come in and roll next to your bed, and then like one of my VBAC students, Gina, who did not actually get her VBAC, but her first baby, if she would have had taken my classes, we both know she probably would have had a vaginal delivery, because when they told her she needed a C-section, they didn't do it for 3 more hours.
Yeah, see? But then there's so many times that happens and it's like, well, it was emergent. And you're like, how is
No.
emergent 3 hours later? Like,
No,
come
that's called
on.
that's not even classified as urgent. And I
No.
guarantee they put on it either elective or
Yep.
failure to progress.
Yep. I almost guarantee that too. I've seen so many op reports where they're like telling me the story and I look at the op report and I'm like,
It says elective.
elective. I was like, so did you elect? She's like, no. I was told I had to have one because it was an emergency situation.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
like,
they damn well know they can't chart that.
yeah. Well,
They're not going to put that. And most people do not have the bandwidth or the forthwithal to go back and look at what was put. Even, I can't even tell you how many inductions that I admit to the hospital. And I'm like, oh, so, just curious, because I damn well know already. I'm like, oh, just curious, why are you being induced today? Well, my doctor said blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's funny, because the orders say that it's elective, which means you're choosing to be induced. And they're like, like,
wait.
I'm a little troublemaker.
Yeah.
But I know that you have a doctor's appointment for your child, so we need to start hop-hopping. But because real mom life here, y'all, we run online businesses and we educate you, but we also have our own babies. Yes. So anything else outrageous that you've heard?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I mean, yes, and I'm just probably blanking it. Just tons of things. Just any reason so you can't.
Okay, so big baby. What do you say about that? Because everybody knows what I say about
I think it's stupid. I think it's absolutely stupid. Yeah, so big baby, small pelvis, failure to progress,
Oh my God. I think I call that failure for the staff to do the damn job.
Yeah, we say failure to wait. Yeah, usually failure to wait or failure to trust like the body, and then we're pushing it. So those are like some of the big main ones where it's like, can we just step back and let the body do what it's meant to do and not be like whatever that doctor's name is, and no one can go into labor on their own. We have to induce everybody, which I like.
Maybe, sir, your patients aren't going into labor on their own because you're inducing them all.
And then there's then the induce, like you have to be induced or have a baby by 39 weeks.
Or you can't be induced.
Like, sure, you can go, but you have to have a baby by 39 weeks and we cannot induce you. So that's what you get. Take it or leave it, and that's all bull crap. Like, yeah, we do not need to have a timeline on us. That's, again, going back to like feeling safe and getting rid of cortisol out of our body so we can allow our body to go into labor. If we're sitting there and we're like, oh, the 30th is coming, I'm going to be 39 weeks. And then what are we doing? This is something I see in our community all the time. Hey, I'm so desperate. What are ways I can self-induce? And I'm like, well, what if we just do nothing and you just let your body do it? But then, we're drinking castor oil and pumping and doing all these things that we don't really need to be doing.
Yeah. Which I'm okay with people trying self-induction, but I recommend after 40 weeks, because come hell or high water, even if you come into the hospital and your body's not ready, it takes us forever. And we have stronger stuff than you do. So
right. But if we're at 37, 38 weeks and we're starting to induce because we're scared of a 39-week induction.
Because they already have your C-section on the schedule.
It's not, like what? Yeah. Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Like, I understand if like, well, we're overdue. We're facing an induction anyway. You want to try some nipple stimulation or, you want to try some things go for it. But like, yeah.
Yeah. It's so frustrating. Okay. So in light that Megan needs to take her baby to the doctors, we're going to, Megan, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere at the VBAC Link. So THE and VBAC is VBAC. A lot of people spell it VBACK. So the VBAC Link. And we're pretty much everywhere: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We even have a Pinterest, but we don't use it.
Oh, I love my Pinterest.
Or the VBAClink.com. You can go there and find the podcast and listen to other stories of people who have maybe been told also that they couldn't do it and then went forward and learned and did it.
What I really love about Megan and myself is that we both educate on VBACs, but we don't just have like a chapter slept onto our birth course about VBACs. That is so frustrating to me, is this like, oh yeah, and I have a VBAC lesson. No, we both have full on VBAC courses that are dedicated to the VBAC mom, even though I don't feel she's any different than my other students going for a vaginal delivery. What they have to face is so particular, and they just need a lot more confidence and hand-holding. And I love that. When I first really felt called to build the VBAC lab, I really didn't want it just to be added on to my birth course. I wanted it to be for those moms. And I love that you have the same. So thank you so much for coming on today, even though I botched our time.
Hey, that is okay. Listen, we're busy. And we're also different time zones, so that does not help.
Yeah. Where exactly are you located?
Utah.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming on today. Hey mama, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Megan, where we talked about VBACs and we talked about weird stuff that's just not true that providers say. As always, please hit subscribe and leave a review. I cannot begin to tell you how much that means to me. We also have a bunch of free resources for you in the show notes, so check them out. I'll see you again next Friday. Bye for now.